Give y'all a second to come on in the room. Second. So come on in the room. A little early. So let y'all get in here. Hello, hello. Let me cut on the live and see y'all coming in. Oh, where's my phone? All right, y'all, come on in the room. Diddy has been sentenced to 50 months. He was not happy, okay? He was pissed. Diddy was pissed. His head was shaking as the judge kept talking. At the end, he grabbed his stuff to leave out. He turned to his family and Mal, but it was like quiet. Like nobody reacted, hollering out or anything. I'm gonna give some more time for people to get in the room, and I'm gonna figure out why my phone is dimming as if it's not gonna stay on. What is happening? I need to update my phone. Y'all come on in the room. Diddy has been sentenced to 50 months. We're just coming in. Y'all some updates. Still waiting. I don't see the family. I don't know if I'm go out the front. I'm in the back. But Diddy has been sentenced. All right, see 10 of y'all in here. About to get started. I got 2 notebooks full of paper, so full of notes. So we're gonna get into it. Later on tonight, I'm gonna go live with both my notebooks so I can break everything down to you. But I just want to say now, Diddy has been sentenced to 50 months. It was evidence from the beginning. When I go through my notes tonight, I'm gonna show y'all when the judge, when we first came in this morning at 10 o'clock, the judge came out at 10:30. He started to go through the objections from the pre-sentencing report. So probation had already come in, done a pre-sentencing report, and they had recommended 50. They had recommended 60 months. Sorry, but that had not been released to the public. And let me make sure y'all can hear me. Out here. Okay, before I get too into it, let me go pull it up on YouTube just to make sure that y'all can hear me. Let me just make sure y'all can hear me. Okay, there we go. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me. So somebody put in the chat if you can hear me. Put a one if you can hear me. So I can make sure y'all can hear me. Put a one in the chat. When you sit here. Damn, but why is my phone? Okay. We struggle streaming. All right, y'all can hear me. Okay, so back to what I was saying. In the beginning, the judge started to kind of go in and talk about the objections that both sides had to the probation pre-sentencing report. And as soon as he started going through talking about how Combs was asking for a downward deviation because of his remorse, and he rejected that. He was rejecting everything that they were asking for, but he was giving the government the aggravation. Remember, I told y'all on the first live this morning, it all mattered on what level he came in at. As soon as the judge said he was level 27, I wrote on my paper, Diddy going to jail. Because you're not going to be level to level 27 and then walk out of here with straight probation. So it was evident to me, since 11:15 this morning, that he was going to prison. The judge never acted as if he was greatly moved by the mitigation to the point of releasing him. He did speak to that he appreciated the letters. He appreciated all that he's been doing with the courses. He hopes that he continues to do that, but he wasn't moved to the point that he was like, "Oh, I'm going to let you out today." He was not moved, but he was not bothered. Like the government tried to make it seem like he was bothered by. Did he listen out those classes? He wasn't bothered by it, but he just wasn't moved enough to let him out. Y'all, Diddy spoke. Okay, so we took a break like about 3:50, and Diddy was the last person to speak. So the government this morning, they presented their side after the judge got to talking, and then the defense did their side. When we came back from the lunch break, Brian Steele was up. We heard from Xavier Donaldson, and then the Reverend from King Clergy, and then the reentry program got spoke. And then it went back to the government. And then Diddy was the last one. We took a break. We took a break before Diddy spoke. When we came back in and it was time for Diddy to speak, I'm sitting out my note, writing my notes, and the judge says, he don't call him Diddy. What the fuck? Oh, Sean Combs. Mr. Combs, take your time whenever you're ready. The floor is yours. Diddy was emotional before he even got up to speak. Okay, so he was emotional before he started to speak. When he got up, he started to speak, and it still took, he had his head down, he was crying, and he took a very, very, very deep breath before he got up to go speak. Okay, he said, "I want to thank you, say a thank you to my family, for giving me a chance. Oh, thank you to the judge for finally giving him a chance to speak. That was the biggest thing. Like, I've been quiet this entire time. I haven't been able to express how sorry I am for my actions, because that was a big part the government stuck on, was that they didn't see remorse from him. So even in his letter, they felt like and even, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, when Diddy was talking, he kind of did make it about him a little bit. He said, my domestic violence, and I have to live with this forever, that I did this, like, he didn't, to me, put enough on the victims. Judge's mind was already made, so that wasn't going to change anything. But I'm just saying, sitting there listening in the gallery, he kind of put a little more on himself than he should have in his apology. He said he's been quiet, not being able to express how sorry he is. His apology, far. Oh, then he says, and I hate to hear this in apologies, I apologize for any harm I caused. Nigga, you beat her ass in the hotel. We already seen the video, Diddy. At this point, you need to be saying, I'm sorry for kicking your ass down the hallway. I'm sorry for beating you. I'm sorry for, you need to take responsibility for the actions, because it's not for any harm. You know the harm that has been done to the victims, because they testified to it. So, failed on that part of the apology. And I hate when people say, like, "Oh, I'm sorry if I caused you any pain." Like, yeah, you beat my ass. Yes. He apologized to her family. He apologized to Jane. Sorry that he brought her into the mess. Let me tell y'all, Miss Gina, what's her name, Virginia Han, the Asian girl, she was sitting behind me. That, that girl needs some help. It was evident today that she was hoping she could be in the mix, and she still doesn't see herself as a victim. Well, clearly he did you the same way he was doing Cassie and Jane, but she was there today laughing and giggling behind me. It, I feel sorry for her, because she doesn't realize kind of what she's been through, and she probably needs some mental help as well. But anyway, so he apologized to Jane. He apologized to all victims. Okay, so he apologized to all victims of domestic violence, because he said the video was triggering to people, and it probably stirred up. No, it not probably. It definitely stirred up everyone about that saw it. And this is when he got into my DV will be a heavy burden I will have to carry. My actions were disgusting, shameful, and sick. Sick for drugs, sick because of the drug use, sick from drug use, out of control. He admits that he knew better. He was raised better. His faith taught him better. He's lost his way in his journey of life. He said he's been trying. Um, he said, I'll be trying my best, Your Honor. Like, some of this was poised and some of it was like just real, right? Because this man knows he's begging for his life. He's like, I'll be trying my best. I got lost in excess. And that's what one of his friends, McMillan, I think his name is James McMillan, the attorney from New York, he spoke about Diddy getting caught up in the excess, right? He was almost a billionaire. So when you have that much money and wealth and access, you get caught up, and he did. The drug addiction. He says he's lost his business, his career, he's destroyed his reputation, he's lost his self-respect, and this whole experience has humbled and broken him to his core. He said he's been stripped down to nothing. I am truly sorry, no matter what they say. And what he meant by that is the government at the beginning of everything today, they were saying they didn't see remorse in him and they didn't see it in the letters. And so he was speaking to that. He said, to my kids, and then he turns to speak to them. I failed you as a father, mommy. He said, mommy, and like, man, like, when somebody say mommy, like, that comes when you're, that pain, or like, I'm in trouble, save me, mommy. I failed you as a son. I'm sorry. And he began to cry again. He said, you taught me better. You raised me better. And then he quotes to whom much is given, much is required. He says he failed my community. I just wanted to be an example that we could do it too. Black people create our own will, solve our own problems. He said that twice now. And when he said it twice, I was like, all right, now, Diddy, what kind of problems you want us out here solving? Anyway, he says, I'm not a bad person. I'm sorry to the community. So he apologizes to us all for letting us down. I'll give you he says, if given a chance, let me show you that people can change. He says sometimes you can go through things that just shake you so much that it changes the trajectory of your life. He says, I know I've been changed for the better. And when he said that, I started hearing the song in my head. But anyway, all right. He says, he asked for mercy, begged your honor for mercy. He was begging, y'all. He really was. Because he knew, because all the nope, I wasn't surprised that this was a significant prison sentence, because that is just what the judge and the feel was from the government this morning, that this deserved a substantial punishment due to the coercion, the violence, and the abuse that he put on Cassie and Jane. Um, he says he begged for a chance to be a father again, a son again, a leader to the community, a chance to get the help that he needs, because he doesn't want to let God down. He doesn't want to let his family down. Y'all, it came out that Brian Steele spoke about, he did some things I didn't like during his speech, but he spoke about how Diddy got addicted to prescription pain pills back when he had a surgery for his knee. He quoted the year, but I can't remember. But it was about 15, I guess 2008, I think it was, and he had surgery on his knee, and he has been high every day since he had that surgery. That was telling. The only problem is that Diddy, the reason he's getting these 50 months is because his house was raided and he continued to have freak offs. He knew he was under investigation and he continued to have freak offs. He actually, and it's not an allegation anymore because you've been convicted, it's all out of trial testimony. You beat Jane. He, to a month or in some weeks before he was arrested, he still was planning to have a hotel night. That's what he called him, with Jane, freak offs with Cassie. And he beat her. He was in the house, he kicked down 5 doors, choked her, grabbed her, slammed her, all of this stuff, while he knew he was under investigation and knew that he was going to have to be turning himself in soon. So they're using that to show that you are not remorseful. You are just performing today. And if you truly were remorseful, as soon as you knew that what you were doing was wrong, they're saying, like, as soon as Cassie filed her lawsuit and you paid, that should have been it. But it wasn't. You continued, and you continued until you got caught. And that is why the government was asking for 11 years, which was totally ridiculous. And the judge spoke to how ridiculous that was. But he did say substantial time was needed because of the violence and the force and the abuse that he put on his victims. He said, Judge, they scared, talking about his kids. He says, I'm scared. He said, but I have nobody to blame but myself. I know I'll have never put my hands on another person again. I've learned my lesson. When I talked about sharing my story, it's not a scheme, it's real. It's a chance for me to teach kids and inmates that have lost hope that they have it will have a healing effect. So that was a big thing that they worked on. And I likened this last night on the live to T.I. when he got in trouble in Atlanta with the guns. Different case, right? But the big thing there was he can be effective on the community. He can have an effect on the community. He can go out and deter people from doing this because he can speak. And so Diddy's like, I can teach this class to other inmates. I can help give them hope. I can help change things. I'm more of a benefit to the community out and serving and helping people than I am in. And y'all, when the judge gave the sentence, he started, and you always, well, not always, well, depends on how often you're in the courtroom. As a defense attorney or a criminal defense attorney, you know, when a judge starts reading, so when the judge started giving the sentence, he started speaking on all the good stuff that he's done. Like, yes, the things you have done for Black and brown people, the things you've done for your community, the first you've done, the business, all of that stuff is good. That's where he started. And then he said, but it doesn't take away from the pain and the violence and the abuse, emotional abuse that you caused your victims, because Cassie said she almost committed suicide, and had her family not intervened, she wouldn't be here. And so the judge really held on to all of that. He mentioned that. He mentioned Jane. He mentioned the trauma and abuse of 10 years, a whole decade that Cassie suffered under the hands of Diddy. He said, I can't just give you 14 months. Like, I can't just ignore that. So all of your mitigation and all of that stuff that you're presenting is great, but I cannot ignore the fact that you tortured Cassie for 10 years. Now, Brian Steele, during his presentation, which he was the last attorney to speak. No. Agnifilo went last. But Brian Steele spoke. He did something that I wish he hadn't done. He started reading messages from Cassie, well, testimony from Cassie, and pulling it from the transcript to argue that she wanted this and that she was a willing participant. And like we passed all of that, bro. We passed that point. We are past that point. I think that was I don't like that. It was not a good move, and the judge spoke to it, and the government spoke back to it when they had their rebuttal. Like you're trying to act like Cassie wanted it, and that's not the case. So definitely think that was a bad move for them to eat. I don't even know why the hell he felt the need and he had to address that. That was a bad move. Um, Totally because it walks back. Like, right, you're saying you want points and credit for being remorseful, yet you're trying to still convince me Cassie's not a victim, because that was still part of the stuff they were arguing, that they're not true victims. They were, like, you can't have it both ways. At this point today, you get to bring your butt in here and follow in the store all the way. So stop trying to cut corners and say somebody's not a victim. I thought that was a really bad move, but still, I love him to death, but I was cringing the entire time. He's referencing the transcript trying to say that Cassie, like, we passed that point, bro. We passed that point because the judge has already told you he's leveling him at a level 27. So let's back off of anything about these victims and anything else. Oh, another thing, they were pissed at that letter, and I think Brian still wrote it. I'll pull it up so I can have it on the show later tonight. But when the government filed their letter for Mia to testify, and again, Mia was not a named victim. She was not Cassie or Jane. She was not a romantic. Well, they did have sex. She was an employee. She testified, but she testifies under a fake name, pseudonym, in a different voice or something. So, to protect herself. But anyway, when the government filed the letter saying that she was going to testify, they then the Diddy's team then filed a letter saying no, she shouldn't be allowed to testify because she's not a statutory victim. Well, the government came back and said yes, she is, and she should be allowed, and the judge granted it. But Diddy's letter scared her away. They were not happy about that, and the government let it be known right off and asked the judge to take that in consideration of the sentencing. And I think he did, because it's like you're continuing to show that you have control over these people. And that's the thing. You have control over these victims. You don't see them as true victims because you feel like they were there willingly, but they only were there in your word of willingly because they wanted you. They wanted to make you happy. They didn't want to disappoint you because they knew how you acted when you were disappointed. And I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I caught a glimpse of Diddy a couple times when he was, when people would go to the podium and speak, and the way he was kind of like looking. I don't know. It was still like that control. Like you better go up here and not what I said to do, or it's gonna be. I don't know. It just still gave that little feel like he was still kind of. I don't know. Like the same person still kind of in there a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. I will say Xavier Donaldson is tall, dark, and handsome attorney. Didn't speak to that. He spoke about how judge. I know you're probably sitting there trying to figure out who am I sentencing, right? Am I sentencing the monster that beat somebody for 10 years and drugged them and forced them and coerced them, or am I sentencing this family man that I've seen on this video that's done these great things, that ran a New York Marathon and raised millions of dollars for the school system? Like, who am I sentencing? And Donaldson said, I want you to think the man in the video, the man with the family, the man in the letters. That is the more consistent theme. That is who stands before you, not the other person. Doesn't look like the judge really bought that. He gave Diddy credit for all the good stuff he did, but basically at the end said you're gonna pay for the bad. Back to Diddy's statement, he says, I want to say thank you to the jury. He thanked the jury. And now, mind you, Diddy is speaking at the end, right? So he's heard already the government say, we don't think you're remorseful from your letters. He's heard people say, so he gets to kind of come in at the end and try to like play cleanup, right? So he can address a lot of things that he's heard throughout the day in his final statement. So he says, I want to say thank you to the jury. And I want to say thank you to the jury and the confidence that basically the judge had. I'm sorry, y'all, my phone cut off. I don't know why it's not staying on like I'm not on the phone. All right, so he says, I understand. Sorry. He said he wants to thank the jury and then thank the judge for giving him confidence in the jury so that he felt like he didn't have to testify because he So whatever that whole conversation was, I guess he was thinking about testifying, feeling like he had to explain himself. But whatever the judge told him about the jury and all of that gave Diddy the confidence to feel like, okay, no, I don't have to testify, which was best for him. Okay, because when you get on the stand, you don't just get to do your direct, you get cross-examined. So he didn't need to testify. He said, I understand the severity of my actions and the consequences. I know that the prosecution wants you to make an example out of me. I mean, now that was evident that the government really did. And I'll say they made a great presentation until they get to that ridiculous 135 months, right? Nothing they were saying was getting us there because the probation pre-sentencing report that we don't have access to because it's sealed, they looked at all of the aggravating factors that the government is talking about and they still stopped at 60. So how the hell did y'all get to 11 years? Judge, without saying that in so many words, was like, that's ridiculous. Okay. He says, so back to Diddy. Says, I know that the government wants you to make an example out of me, but make an example out of what a person can do when they are given another chance. He turned again to his children to thank them for speaking because all of the kids spoke. Originally, it was only going to be a 2 or 3 of them supposed to read something, but when they all got up to the podium, they all got up together. The guys spoke first, then the girls. The girls were terribly emotional. It was so hard for the non-twin. Can't remember her name. I want to say I think it's Chance to speak. She was very emotional, but he thanked all of them for having the courage to get up and speak. And he told them again that he loves them. And then he turned back to the court and said, no matter what anyone says, I know that I am truly sorry. So that was how he ended it. The judge took another 5-minute break as soon as Diddy finished to come back and do his sentencing. People really didn't leave the room when the judge took that last break because we knew like we're coming back to get this sentence. So everybody just kind of stayed in place. When the judge came out, he said that he wanted Diddy to know. He says, I'm not sentencing you because the government, of course, they wanted all of these non-acquitted acts to be considered, which the judge did. That's how he got to that 27. And if you all don't remember, a long time ago, right, when he got convicted, I went through and showed you all how the government was trying to get his leveling bumped up because the charge just right off is at a 14, but the judge said he's at 27. A big jump was one, the grouping of the victims to say that all of the victims included the escorts, so that made his victims go from 2 to 8, but also the coercion in the force. That is also another reason why he gave him this aggravated sentence. So the judge says, you are being sentenced only for your 2 convictions for the Mann Act. Like he wanted that to be clear. Like even though, so right then again, it's a hint for the defense attorney in the room to know your ass about to get some time because he said, I want you to know what I'm about to do may not feel like it, but you are only being sentenced to the 2 counts of the Mann Act. However, federal statute says that the court is required. So the judge felt like, and he spoke to the fact that he didn't have a choice. The judge says he was required to consider the nature of the offense and the history of the defendant. When it comes to that nature of the offense, it's the video from the hotel, it's the beatings that they testified to, it's the drugs, it's being forced into the sex, it's all of that. So he says, like, I have to consider all of that. And while y'all don't want me to, the law requires me to consider it. He goes into the great things about Diddy. You're a self-made artist. You uplift your community. You impact. I am not. He's like, I know about your impact on the Black community. It's quite impressive. Your donation of your time and your money to worldly causes, that is commendable. This is how the judge is speaking. And in my head, I just know, like, okay, this is all just kind of the sweetening you up, right? You giving the sugar before you hit him with the shit. He said your development of the course is impressive, and the court hopes you will continue to expand and help. I was like, yep, because you're going to be in there. That's what that means. That's why he's saying it. The court knows you had problems with addiction. The court also understands your tragedy. They spoke a lot. Like Diddy's attorneys were speaking about that he suffered from PTSD. He had 2 doctors that did. Oh, thank you. He had 2 doctors that did some psyche valves on him and gave reports, and they talked about him having PTSD. His attorneys weren't able to speak to what the exact trauma was that caused him PTSD, but he said possibly your father being murdered at 3, having to learn the real truth about that murder when you were older, the other losses that he suffered, the drug abuse he was around, the circumstances that he was raised up in, those type of things could have contributed to it. And, you overcame all of that. But the judge says the freak offs and the hotel nights and your relationship with Cassie and Jane, the court is required to look to take all that into consideration. Y'all, I'm sorry, I was taking notes so fast. I'm trying to read them. The judge said your history of good doesn't outweigh the pain to the victims. That was a lot of it, y'all. That you just can't get over it. The video was touching to see him playing with the kids and with the family and all of that stuff, but it still just does not discount the 10 years of pain that the victim suffered. Well, Cassie suffered. He said you use power and control over the lives of the victims. Your abuse, you use your abuse to get your way. That's what the government had said at the beginning. They were saying that, because Diddy's team was trying to, take him away from the prosecution. They're like, he's not a pimp. He didn't pay for, he wasn't, because he didn't pay for the sex that came out right in the trial. But they're saying like he didn't benefit financially. Like pimps sell women for financial gain. They're like, Diddy's not a pimp. But the government early on has said Diddy's currency, he is like a pimp, and his currency is control. And the judge came back to that control when he was talking about it in the end. You had power and control over the lives of others, and you took, you abused them. He says the freak offs, the hotel nights were massive. Text messages, emails, broke the images and stuff. The judge saw all of that. And that's what happens when you go to a trial, right? We take a plea, the judge gets like a quick little blurb of what happened. Although Brian Steele made a great point, Diddy never had a chance at the plea because they never offered him a plea to the Mann Act. They was, they were coming Rico, that's life, so he had to fight. But the judge says, I saw all of that stuff. I saw the images of the beating, the videos and stuff. He drove Jane and Cassie to think like less of themselves, to want to commit suicide. Sorry. All right, he started quoting words from Cassie's letter when he's sentencing Diddy and pulling out the pain and stuff that she felt. So like then I know it's getting so I'm looking at the comments. SK says Cassie 1,000% was with the shits. This is what I told you from the beginning. Y'all gotta remember, Cassie got with Diddy when she was 19. Diddy started slipping drugs into her Gatorade before she even started real. I'm not saying she went out there wilding, but y'all have to come on and face the point that this man was wielding his control and power over them. And that is what the judge and that's what the judge found from hearing the evidence. He said the coercion was bad. He says a decade long. He said it happened so long because you weren't caught and you had the resources to keep it going. And I just spoke to you all earlier, right? Not only did he have the resources to keep it going, he knew that he was being investigated. His house had got raided, and he still was having freak offs. Like, you are under investigation, a federal investigation, and you like, I don't care. I'm still gonna have freak offs and hotel nights. Like, bro, no, we getting your ass. They punishing him for that. Yeah, and that's when the judge went into the whole thing about, after the lawsuit, you freaking continue to do this until he was locked up. Like they're like, the only reason you're not doing it now is because you're in jail. There were people in the crowd as well that did not buy his speech. They did not buy the letters. And I'm gonna tell y'all something else. Now, the kids were speaking right, so we all know allegedly that his little twin, is that Justin? Which one? Okay, y'all know the one that looks like Diddy. They're involved in some cases as well. There are some allegations against them as well that kind of mirror some of the stuff that their dad. So as he spoke about that being my pops, my twin, I studied him. I'm everything like him. Can that be good, right? This is the example you set. Now you're leading them into telling y'all the judge took all of that stuff into consideration. And so he feels like he needs more time to rehabilitate, more time to just basically take responsibility for his actions. He doesn't feel like the 14 months or 12 months that he's been in was thing. Yeah, Tisha says power was a currency. Yes, power was his currency. Franju P. Diddy says money is a hell of a drug. It is. The love of money is the root of all evil. But Diddy says he don't care about none of that. He can't care no more because it's all gone. He's like, don't care about none of that. He just want to come home to his family. I get it. He made a heartfelt plea. But I'm telling you, if you were in this courtroom and if you know anything about the law, you knew from this morning he was not coming. Okay, you could tell the judge as he went through that pre-sentencing report saying what he was adopting, what he was keeping out. It was very clear that time was coming down. And I don't know who all these people are, but you could tell. So 3 rows for family. You could tell a few of the men that were on that 3rd row were music execs, or just, and it was evidence by the first break that they were seeing the writing on the wall as well. They kind of was like, that was kind of attitude, like how bad is it going to be? But anybody with like real sense that wasn't just in here holding out hope could kind of see from this morning, okay, we're gonna get some time. We're gonna get some time. And I think that he kind of was, although he was like disappointed in the judge because his judge kept talking, he was over it. Like, I'm gonna tell y'all, if we hadn't been in the federal court and this one Diddy, I can't say he would have flipped the table, but he definitely would have grabbed his shit and walked onto the back as soon as he got his sentence. All that other stuff the judge was talking with, he didn't want to hit none of that shit. He was just sitting there like shaking his head, like, you really gonna do this shit? Like, y'all really finna do this to me? Y'all really finna lock me up? That's kind of the what I was getting from the shoulders and the head and the nods and stuff. And then at the end, he grabs his stuff and picks it up because he had like his notebooks and stuff, his trial stuff that he's been prepping. He picks it up and he turns back to the family. He mouths, I'm sorry, I love you. Like, it's gonna be good. Like, they came in here knowing that it could be, sometime. But I'm gonna tell y'all, okay, so when Diddy first came into the courtroom this morning, because we haven't been seeing what he really looks like because there's no camera. So his hair was salt pepper, more pepper than salt. And he had on his brown sweater, his tan sweater on top of a white button down. I can't remember what color the pants were, but he looked like like he was on a TV show playing an old dad. Like, seeing him like I haven't seen him like that. So when he came in, I was like, this is not the Diddy I know. Like, this, he looks like he's playing in a movie. When he left out, he looked that same way, dejected, like he was playing a movie role, like it wasn't real. Like, it really, but everything in between, you can see him. He's talking and stuff, but it was just like, man, I haven't ever seen him look like that. Prison and time and jail and stuff ages you. He's only 55, but then he came out there looking like he was playing Bill Cosby. Like, he looks like an old man, like he was playing a role at first. It was just like, wow, like this is this has really been something that he's been, it's been, you can tell it's been stressful on him, but he got a little more time. So with 50 months in federal custody, they don't do parole, right? So it's not like Georgia where you get sentenced, you got to do a third of your time and then you're up for parole. But they do allow you to get in programs that will cut time off of your sentence. I don't know how none of that works. We're just going to have to see what happens. But 50 months, he's already done, 12 and like a couple of weeks. So 50 months is 4 years and 2 months. So he's got like another 3 years to do. So I hope that his spirits stay up in the sense of he doesn't go back to the depression and stuff he was in when he first. But I mean, he probably will, y'all, because he really was. They really were hopeful and thinking that the judge might give him less time, but he didn't like break down in the courtroom. But I'm sure when they took him out, it was just like a sobering feeling. Like, everybody in there was just quiet. Like, it wasn't any reaction from the family. Nobody bust out in tears. Nobody. It just was quiet. Everybody was just like, "That's what it is." All right. Okay. So I'm sure they'll have their reactions. Like I say, we've been here so long. It's kind of like, when you go to a funeral sometime and it's like 6 hours long, you have your moments where you're crying, and you're happy, you're sad, you're laughing. So I saw all ranges of emotions. So we came back in from the afternoon break. The girls, when they had went spoke right before lunch, everybody was all emotional. But afternoon, it's kind of like, they're talking, it's light again because it's just such a long day. But after, everybody's just kind of quiet. It's just quiet. Like, he's not coming home anytime soon. Like, they just were quiet. There was one guy that was very he wasn't emotional, but you're like angry emotional. But he wasn't one of the kids. He was sitting behind me. I'm not sure. He was like with them. He was sitting next to Gina, but I'm not sure who he was. But a lot of people were just kind of yeah. So Paris, Italy. So when I say time served a plot, like you get credit for the time. So you get credit. So he's not gonna have to start a fresh 50 months. So he gets credit for the 12 and a half that he's already done. So just to track that, and that's how much longer he has to go. Yes, he will be transferred to another jail. The judge asked Agnifilo, did he have a recommendation? And he said, Judge, in light of us finding out now that he has a sentence, give us the weekend to figure that out, and then we'll make a recommendation on Monday. Um, so they're going to talk. He's going to make that recommendation on Monday, then they'll see. Hopefully, it'll be something. Now, as Regina says, sorry. Regina says, let's not forget he's an actor, and some people in the courtroom had your same sentiments. They were not moved by the words. They felt like he was put on the show. They felt like it was all an act. They didn't buy it. I have not read Cassie's letter. I need to download it, her new letter that she just submitted this week. But she speaks in the letter and says that she don't buy it. She's like, don't buy it. He's an act, all that kind of stuff. We'll never know. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Like I say, I saw him a couple times looking at people that were going to the stand. Like, you better say what I told your ass to say. The look was kind of like, wait a minute, Diddy be in court? Why you looking like that? He was just looking like, I don't know. It was just this stare that made you feel like you better perform like I told you. So I don't know. That's why, Miss, I told you about earlier, Miss Westmoreland got very emotional. She was crying like this was her man during her presentation. I don't know what that was about, but she was very emotional during her presentation. So emotional that it was kind of like overkill a little bit. It was a little bit. And then, and maybe this would have had more impact had it happened like closer to. But when Brian Steele gets up to start talking, the first thing out of his mouth is, Judge, I have tears in my eyes. Like, bro, we just came back from break. Like, ain't even nothing emotional that happened yet. But it's like, as an attorney, you practice what you want to say. You want to have this impact, and sometimes it can kind of come off performative versus just real. And that's kind of, what I was getting. North Philly Mid said she an actor too. It was giving it a little bit today. Yeah, somebody said Martha Stewart served jail time. She sure did. So hey, and so will Diddy will be as well. What else? Y'all, I could be sitting out here talking for like 3 hours. What I tell y'all, I got a whole fresh yellow notepad of notes. We're gonna long stroke this thing later on, but let me go. Just gonna eat something. Let me see. So the judge said, he has to do a sentence that would deter. He has to do, the acts of, he just really kept talking about the acts of violence. Those acts of violence. Judge Subterranean, like I don't know his nationality, whatever. But he's like a little guy up there on this thing. Like everything in this case probably blew this man away. Like he probably has never heard of none of this shit. So it probably seemed very extreme to him. And he kept saying how extreme this is. And I'm not discounting like it wasn't extreme, but we all know that like domestic violence, all that stuff happens every day, sex acts, all that kind of stuff happens all the time. But the judge just kept talking about how massive it was. Like it just really shocked his conscience in this case. I will say, so the government, when they were talking, because they had a hearing last week where Diddy was trying to get them to quit and do a motion for new trial, right? And the judge was asking, are there any other cases of the Mann Act where somebody has gotten substantial time or whatever for only transporting? And so the government said, yeah, we got cases. So today everybody came here with their cases. So the government says they bring out this case out of the Southern District. The guy's name is Jason. I think it's Dylan, and it was the case where a guy he had like a international sex ring and all kind of stuff. Anyway, they're trying to compare the cases and to say like why Diddy should get higher time because his case is similar to this. And so what Driscoll did, like I say, this defense team was on it now. Driscoll, he said there's 938 Mann Act cases that the Southern District has ever dealt with since the enactment of it, which was like 1910. And he went through every case. And they had a data spreadsheet of all the cases and what all the sentencing were and what the sentencing was when somebody had a first arrest, And they said they always fail around 12 months. Actually, less time than Diddy's already served, and less time than what they were asking for. But then the government was coming back saying, well, no, actually, we got cases that show this person got 130 months, this person got 127. Like, so it was just a fight of what is this case similar to, Judge? What should you do? But the whole point was, Judge, we got all these different things because every case is individual. You have to look at each case on an individual basis. And that's what the judge came back really and said. Like, I have to look at each case individually and take the facts of it. In this case, it's horrible. The way he did those victims, but and then, okay, there was another point. So that case that they were comparing it to, that guy was running a prostitution ring, right, and making money. I think he made like $1.4 million. And so Driscoll was saying, Judge, I don't know how much ass you got to sell to make $1.4 million. That's a lot, right? And so then he said, that's not like what's happening in this case. Well, here go the government with their smart mouth ass, get up at the end, and they start saying, Judge, well, every freak off was about $5,000 per escort. And it would basically take, we only charged him with 90, we spoke about 90 freak offs in this case. But it would take like 127 to get to the 1.4. It was just so petty, like trying to compare. But I mean, they were doing what they supposed to do. So I was in there like, oh, okay, good one, good comeback. But at the end of the day, you could tell that it was all about the abuse. The abuse, even though he was never charged with the abuse, and he couldn't have been because the statute of limitations on domestic violence stuff. I mean, for misdemeanors, 2 years in Georgia, and a felony would be 4. So there's no way he could have been charged with those things. But those are exactly the things that got him these 50 months. And when the state, so at the beginning of the court, when everybody comes in, judge, like, who's here for the government? The 6-pack, they stood up. I started thinking about the 6-pack. They all stood up. I mean, everybody, all the prosecutors to the helpers on the side, it was all women on the government side. I was like, okay, we're sending a message today. We're here for the victims. And yeah, they were sending a clear message. And Diddy stood up his team now. They weren't lacking either. They were deep as well. So they stood up. And but I just thought about that whole comment from the beginning. When they stood up. K. Joseph says if one side agrees with the sentence, then it's not a fair sentence. Now both sides not happy with the sentence, so it's a fair sentence. Yeah. And the judge spoke to that too. He said, I'm not going to go into this splitting the baby. So don't think I'm looking at the government's 11, y'all's 14, and I'm going to fall somewhere in the middle. It's going to feel like that, but that's not what I'm doing. So he wanted to be clear that I'm not splitting the baby. He spent about 5 minutes speaking to the ridiculousness of the 135 and just what would be the justification for it. He says you all are using the aggravating factors to get there, but the pre-sentencing report used those same aggravating factors, and they didn't get there. They got to 60 months. So the 135, he totally threw that out the window. He wasn't even thinking about it. So that wasn't something he ever was considering. So I thought this whole time 5 years, and so 50 months. I was almost right about how long he would get. So yeah, the 11 years, it was never going to happen. The 11 years, the government asking for 11 years in this case was as ridiculous as Ms. Love asking for 25 years from Young Thug when he wouldn't say YSL was a gang. It's utterly ridiculous. So he never gave that any consideration. So that's it. So I had and I'm on the phone that the Cash App is connected to, but I wanted to thank Beverly Wright, I believe, and I'm gonna come back and get the other name. I got 2 Cash Apps yesterday. I did not see until today, so I wanted to thank you all for that. I'll put it in the on the when I get back to my computer and set everything up. I'll give you all credit for that, and I'll speak about it again on the live because I don't like to receive and not thank people for that. So thank you so much. What time is it? I don't even know what time. I gotta find my watch. They make us take everything off. So it's 6 o'clock. I need time to get from down here, get something to eat, just chill or whatever. So I should probably be back live around like 8:30 or so. So y'all just stay, turn your notifications on. When I do that, I'll start from the beginning and take y'all all the way through. Like I said, I got a notebook and then some of what happened today. And remember I was I'll say the jokes for later. so we can laugh. We gonna long stroke this thing tonight because y'all know I got some jokes. All right, so it's been great. Thank you all for tuning in. I think we had like over 200 in the chat at one point. This was an amazing experience. I do not see how people came out here every day to watch this trial. I don't have it in me. One day was enough, okay? I'm like, look, I out here represent my own people to get them out. So yeah, shout out to all those who came out here every day. The girl wouldn't have been. This was a great experience today being down here in the Southern District of New York. Thank y'all for following. I am not done. I will go live, like I said, another couple hours or so. Give y'all the long strokes. We go through everything, all my notes with everything. But we are done today. The wind's starting to get really cold out here. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for following along all days. It's been so exciting. And we'll be back tonight to cap it all off and give y'all the long stroke on it. So thanks. Signing off, the Fit Lawyer ATL. I'll see you in court.